Board Game Brawlers. I'm sorry. I don't know why I felt the need to say ahoy. That's bad even by my standards. Let's start over. Hi, Board Game Brawlers. Let's just keep going. My name is Nick, and this is Board Game Brawl, and we're looking at Robinson Crusoe: Adventures on the Cursed Island. Now, this is published in America by Z-Man Games. It's actually been available in Europe for quite some time. You could have gotten it, imported it if you wanted to, but it is available in America with an English edition for the very first time. And it is designed by a man, a European man. I'm sorry that's rude, but he has a very difficult name to pronounce. It's Ignacy Trejewek. That's close enough. Correct me in the comments. I want to be corrected, please. So this is a cooperative game and you are people who are from either the Robinson Crusoe family or the other crew members who are the ship that they crash landed on an island with. I've actually never read the book, so I don't know all the details, but you're stranded on this island and there's a bunch of different scenarios, and depending on what scenario, that's kind of the storyline you're trying to go through, and in every scenario you're just trying to survive. So this game has been very, very popular, and with surprising groups of people. A lot of Eurogamers really love this game, which is surprising because Eurogamers typically don't like cooperative games, even semi-cooperative games. But this game has a lot of Euro elements to it, mixed with that cooperative aspect, so it's brought a lot of those people into the cooperative fold. Well, I love cooperative games. I'm not really keen on the Robinson Crusoe theme because I'm surprised that there's a game that has the Robinson Crusoe theme. But is the cooperative aspects of it enough? It's certainly an impressive looking game. There's a lot of bits to it. I love nice components. Let's check it out, and then I'll tell you what I really think. Okay. I know I said before in my other videos that, the game that I'm reviewing might be a little bit too long. I'm just going to give you a brief overview. I really mean it this time. There is a lot of details to Robinson Crusoe, and I cannot possibly go over every single detail. And to be quite honest with you, if I tried to, I would probably get a couple of things wrong without having the rule book handy right away, and you're just going to call me out on getting some rules wrong. So I'm going to give you just the most general of overviews just to show you what the game is about. So here's the game board of Robinson Crusoe, and you have all kinds of different little bits here, but the first thing you're going to focus on is your scenario. And the game comes with 3 different scenario sheets that are double-sided, and each one has a different scenario. We're just going to focus on the base one here and just show you a little bit about it. This is called Castaways, and every game of Robinson Crusoe requires you to survive. If anyone in the group dies, then the whole group loses. So you have to live until the end of the scenario, but you also always have a goal to accomplish. So in Castaways, you've just shipwrecked on this island, you and your crew, and you're going to have to build a fire in order to try and signal for help. So you've got this, here's the round tracker here, and you're going to use this white token to keep track of the rounds. And what happens is you have to survive through all of this, and you have to be building basically a giant pile of wood on the beach. And you have to fill up all of these squares here with little cubes that represent wood, these little brown cubes. And you have to have enough wood to fill them all up at once each time you try to fill up one of these rows, starting with the lesser one, working your way up. And then if you can survive until at least the 10th round, then you have the opportunity to win the game if all of these spaces are filled. But you can't win until you get to at least the 10th round, and then you must win before the end of the 12th round, which is to have all of these spaces filled. So that is what you have to do. You have to survive in this scenario, and you have to build this fire. Now, other scenarios like this cursed island says that you must build crosses all over the island to get rid of this evil fog, and there's a scenario about cannibals and so on and so forth. And they all have their own different requirements. And there's different little special inventions you can have. There's different stuff with every type of scenario. The next thing you're going to do is everyone's going to get a random character from 4 different characters. And this game is up to 4 players. You have the explorer, the carpenter, the soldier, and the cook. And what I like about these is that you have female on one side and male on the other side. And really, there's absolutely no difference between the side, but it's just a little extra bit of flavor, because it's nice to see the games are trying to be more gender neutral and let both men and women feel like they're they have an equal chance of playing a character that's like them. So every one of these has a different ability, just thematic to their character. So the soldier is all about fighting, and will be able to spend morale tokens, which are these little things here, determination tokens, I should say, to get special abilities. And so the soldier, one of his abilities is he can discard 2 of those tokens to increase either the palisade, which are the camp's defenses, or the skull represents their weaponry level by 1. The carpenter, which is my personal favorite because I love building inventions in this game, can discard. Let's see. My favorite here is you can discard 2 determination to spend 1 less wood during 1 action of any type, and so on. They all have to do with building, and so on and so forth. And the other thing is you have a little health tracker here, which you'll keep track of with this little red cube. And if anyone ever gets down to the skull and crossbones, of course that character dies. Everyone loses. And if you ever pass one of these little arrows here, the whole morale track is going to go down. Even if you heal back up and go back down again, it goes down again. We'll get some morale in a second. On the other side of the card, everyone's got their own little special invention that is, they start the game with basically the blueprint for that invention, and invention cards look like this. And this is your own particular invention that you have the opportunity to build. And if you build it, you're actually going to get a bunch of bonus determination tokens as a reward for basically inspiring yourself. Let's just go through the turn sequence. So the first thing you're going to do, except for the very first round of the game, is you're going to draw a card from this event deck. This event deck is pre-constructed with a certain amount of cards at the beginning of the game, and you're going to draw one, and different things are going to happen. So first, you're going to determine what kind of symbol is here. If it's a book icon, you're going to have to look at your scenario card, and you'll see that here that says book, no effect. But other scenarios, something special might happen when you draw a card with a book on it. So, for instance, on the other side of this, the Curse Island scenario, you're going to have to put fog tokens out on the board, which is really annoying, by the way. So after that, well, let me show you what one of the other ones is. If you have something that has, instead of that one, it's got one of these what are called adventure symbols with like a question mark with different colors, you're going to have to take that. There's actually a token for that. So this one is green, and you're going to have to put that on the appropriate deck of the matching color, in this case the adventure deck. What that means, and there's ones for each of these, if the next person that places one of their workers there in order to take the action of that space is going to have to draw a card from one of those piles and go on an adventure, and usually not a very fun one. So that's really not a good thing. Good things could happen, but it's likely not. But we're not done with this card yet. So right underneath that adventure token symbol, you're going to have to resolve the effect of this card. So in this case, it says you're going to have to take this there's a little black symbol here, and you're going to have to put this on the exploration action field, which is right there. And then during the next exploration encounter you do, you need to have at least 1 in weaponry, which is this track up here, or else whoever takes that action is going to take a wound. So that's bad. But we're still not done with this card. So once you resolve that, you're actually going to take this card and you're going to put it down here. And in this threat field. So if there's already card in the rightmost space, that card slides down, in this case the food crates, and then, which wouldn't be, like I said, you don't really do this in the first round, and then you're going to put this card down here in this space. So from then on, as long as this card is in this field, one of the actions a person can take is to put their little pawn on there and take the action of that space. So in this case is that you put a pawn there, and you get determination tokens. Well, let me give you a better example. Here's one. Put a worker there, and you will discard this card, and you'll get a determination token. Okay? So you'll actually put your worker there, get rid of this card, and that's fine. But let's say no one bothers to put their worker there. So the next event card gets drawn, and that next event card is going to push that one down. And then if it slides off the field, in other words, another event card gets put out and slides that one off, then you have to resolve the very bottom part of this, which is usually bad. So it says here, if possible, turn 1 item face up to invention side and cancel its effect. Which means it's something that an invention that you've already built, you basically unbuild. So that's a bad thing. And so you want to try to put a worker there to discard a card if the effect is really bad. But you may not have the ability to do so because you have so few actions to do. So that's the event card phase. Then you have the morale phase. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to choose one player to take this marker here, which is just the first player marker. There's nothing else special about it. And every round, this is going to pass to the next person in clockwise order. So the first the person who has the first player marker for a round has two important responsibilities. The first is that they get to resolve disagreements, which good luck with that. But the other thing is that you're going to look at this morale track. And wherever this morale track is, you're going to be hit with that effect, which has to do with these determination tokens, which I've showed you before, which can fuel your special abilities. So if it starts at 0, nothing happens. If you manage to raise the morale track to 1 or to 2, then either by taking the action that improves your morale by going to this space over here, or by other effects from the cards, then if you're in a positive number, the first player and only the first player during that phase is going to take determination tokens equal to that. In the topmost space, they can choose 2 determination tokens or to get a health back, which is pretty good. But some things are going to make you lose morale. And if you lose morale, you're actually going to end up in negatives, which means you're going to actually lose determination tokens. Like I said, if you take too many wounds, you're going to lose. If anyone takes too many wounds, everyone's going to lose morale in this morale track. But that all only happens to the first player. Next, you're going to have a production phase. And the production phase is going to be dependent on where your camp is in relation to the island tiles. And you'll actually have a little camp marker, which I don't have right now, but let's just say that this is your little camp marker, and you'll have it there in this particular space. That means that when you have the production phase, you're going to produce whatever resources are available here. So that's a wood and a food. So that's pretty good. And when you produce, like I said, the produced goods are always going to go into your available resources. So you can use those right away on this turn. But stuff you do later to gain more resources like food and wood are actually going to go into resources for future use that you do not have available right away. You'll have to, at the start of the next, during production of the next round, you'll move those over. But as you get more tiles, you have the capability to get more resources, but you can't actually, during production phase, you can't just automatically get those resources unless your camp is there. So that can be kind of important. Then you're going to have the action phase. And the action phase is actually where everyone's going to have, depending on your color, you're going to have, and blue is awesome, blue is the best, blue is the one you should always use if you want to win, by the way. I'm just pointing that out. But you're going to have these 2 little action markers. And this is a cooperative game, so everyone can discuss where they're going to put their tokens. And you're going to put them at different areas of the board in order to gain the action. So if you want to invent a card, you're going to pick the card that you want to try to invent if you meet the prerequisites. So let's say the shovel, because we actually are at the beach. And say, I'm going to build a shovel. Maybe you're the carpenter, and maybe you're really good at that, so that's what you want to focus on. And I love the carpenter. Or you could go ahead and you can try to build roof. You can try to build palisade if you have the resources, because you have different requirements. You might need, for 4 players, you need 4 wood to build a piece of roof, or 3 pelts. So that can be kind of tough. You can try to use wood to increase your weapons. You can just try to make a shelter. You can do all kinds of things with that. So that's one thing you can do. You can go ahead and try to go exploring. If you go exploring, you're going to try and grab a random tile off the top of the stack and put it on the board, like I mentioned before. If you're going to try to gather resources, you can pick a tile that you've revealed and try to gather one of the different resources that's available there. If you want to go for, this is the building space as well, if you're just trying to build something, you can, if you have put cards into the hunting deck, you can go here, and 2 workers must go there. It can be 2 of your, I believe it can be 2 of your own, or it can be 1 of each of different people, and because it's really hard work to go hunting, you need help. And you can try and kill a beast. And the beast cards will tell you everything you need in order to kill them. So an alligator, it can deal 6 damage to you, so you need to at least try and beat that. And it's going to hurt your weapons by 2 because you break weapons when you fight things, which is really annoying. But you can get 3 food for killing it and no pelts, unfortunately. And that's basically how all the... everyone knows how dangerous Kamoy are, but, Anyways. that's basically how that works. And like I said before, you could put your worker on one of the threat cards and try to resolve it to get something beneficial and to get rid of the card before it becomes a problem. And you could go to the morale spot and either get the termination tokens or increase the morale track. You can go here to rest and just gain a health back. All kinds of different things you can do. And just to show you some of the other things, if you go exploring with the tiles, when a tile pops out, you can immediately take 2 of these discovery tokens, if that's what that symbol is. This symbol here will let you actually take a card from the beast deck and put it into the hunting deck, like I was mentioning before. There is a pile of adventure tokens, and I recommend putting these in some sort of felt pouch or a bag to draw from because they're randomized. And these are always beneficial for you. So if you take this token, you can always sacrifice it at any time during your turn to gain a wood immediately. This one immediately lets you use one of these little brown markers here as an extra worker to place. This one, if you have the pot, you can increase your morale. Don't ask me to explain how that works. Pot for 2 health if you actually have the pot. This lets you take a treasure card. I mean, so the discovery tokens are always good, and so you'll have that. And there's always different kinds of things that can pop out when you, and the different terrain tiles will actually give you access to new types of terrain, which, so if we have the field face up, that means we have the prerequisite to make the rope. So that can be useful too. Now, I mentioned that you have 2 workers. Now you can place workers on 2 different spots if you want to, and you can do 2 different actions. But if you only place 1 worker there, it's not guaranteed to succeed, which means that if you're going for exploring or for gathering or for building, if you only have 1 worker there, after everyone's placed their workers, you'll try to resolve the action, and you'll have to roll the appropriate dice. So if you're going to go for gathering, you'll roll the 3 gray dice, and there's 3 green dice, and there's 3 brown dice for the appropriate spots, and you'll roll them, and depending on what you get, that's going to happen. So if you roll at least one of these V's, you're going to succeed. This is a success die, and you will succeed on it. But you may get something else. You may get these little tokens here. Those represent the termination tokens. So you didn't succeed, but you're more determined to succeed next time. So you'll take those, whatever the number of tokens are, and you'll be able to use them later. Now, this is the wounds die, unfortunately, and there are some blank sides, but most of the sides have these little broken hearts. And if you roll this, you're going to take a wound, unfortunately. And then there's this die, which is the adventure die. Adventure die, I love that show. If you roll that, you're going to have to draw a card from the appropriate deck. And like I said, these are adventures, and they're usually not good, but they could be. So hard work. If possible, you must discard a food because you work so hard that you get hungry. Dangerous work. You put one of these little tokens and one of these question marks on the building action field, which means the next time you try to build, you're going to have to draw another one of these cards, and you're going to have to re-roll once any victory die you roll. So even if you think you succeed, you might not. So there are some really bad stuff there. And the production ones are sort of the same. So, well, this is a good one. Let me show you how this works. So, when you get a card like this that's split into 2, the top part will say decide. You can discard this card immediately, or you draw 1 starting item card, which were these items that you randomly get at the beginning of the game. And you can shuffle this adventure card into the event deck. Well, which is this deck here? Well, why is that a big deal? Because if you draw that card at the start of your turn in the first phase, then this happens, which in this case is actually not that bad. You get a morale and you draw another card. But there are some really bad ones. So for example, you'll get the top effect of this, and if this card gets shuffled into the event deck, which this one is going to require you to, the tile, you put one of these little minus worker tiles on one of these fields, and the tile with the minus worker becomes inaccessible. Turn it face down when this card is drawn from the event deck. So that's some really bad stuff, and you want to try to avoid that if possible, but sometimes you just can't avoid it. But you could avoid rolling those dice at all if you decide to double down on a space. So in other words, I want to build. I'll put both of my workers there, or someone else has an extra worker, so I say, hey, help me out over here. So someone else puts a worker there. It doesn't matter if you mix and match, but if you have 2 workers at a spot, you auto-succeed on whatever you're trying to do. You do not have to roll the dice at all or suffer any kind of negative effects unless otherwise told to by a card. So that's pretty awesome. And that's basically the action phase. So everyone's going to do that, and then is going to come the nasty, nasty, nasty weather phase. So in the weather phase, you're going to, depending on the scenario and where you're at on the round track, you may have to roll different types of weather die. And they're never good. You might roll one that gives you rain, or you might roll one that gives you snow. And rain and snow is going to hurt you if you don't have enough roof, and it's going to make you lose wood and food if you don't have enough roof. And the really bad thing about this game is that if you don't have enough of a certain type of resource to lose, so let's say that something, you get hit with snow and it's going to make you lose wood because you don't have enough roof. If you don't have the wood to lose, you might think, well, nothing bad happens, I guess. Wrong. Everyone loses a health for every resource they could not lose in place of that effect. If you had to lose 3 wood and you couldn't, everyone loses 3 health. So that can be really, really bad, and that forces you to pay attention to your roofing and your palisade and other stuff like that to make sure that you, even if you can't protect you, that you actually have something to lose in place of dying. So there is that, and different effects and scenarios will make you roll different weather dice. And then finally, we get down to the night phase. And the night phase is where everyone needs to eat. So you have to have food cubes, at least a food cube for everyone in the available resources space at that moment. Stuff over here that you just got during the action phase does not get counted yet. So if you have it, let's say in a 4-player game, you have at least 4 cubes to discard. Hooray! Everyone gets to eat. If you don't, whoever doesn't eat is going to lose 2 health. They take 2 wounds. So it's always important to have food. Now, also during the night phase, if you don't have a proper shelter, guess what? Everyone takes a wound. You're exposed to the elements. And finally, you can decide during the night phase if you want to actually move your camp to a new tile, which will affect your production phase. So like I said, the game is going to end. Well, it can end in a few ways. It can end if you get to the last round and you're not able to complete your scenario. Everyone loses. If someone in your group or multiple people at the same time die, everyone loses. But if you're able to get to the appropriate rounds, depending on your scenario, and you complete your scenario objective, you all win. Hooray. Pat yourselves on the back because this is a very hard game to win. There is a lot going on in Robinson Crusoe Adventures on the Cursed Islands, if you couldn't tell. This was a very difficult overview for me to do because there's just so many moving parts to it, and I've played this game 3 times, and even after 3 plays, we went and consulted, one of my friends consulted an online resource and looked through the facts, and there's errata on the bits, and some of the rules were doing wrong because some of the rules in the Z-Man edition of the rulebook were not quite right, and it's just, there's just so much going on in this game. It's a very complicated game, lots of little bits, and you know, it's when you add in the scenarios with different setups each time, it can be a lot to keep track of, and because of that, it extends the game length quite a bit. The setup time is a real killer. This is one that you want to schedule for your game night and set it up to the best of your ability ahead of time. Figure out the scenario first, have it ready to go so that you and the players can just sit there and just go through it and have everyone know a little bit about the rules. So it probably sounds like I'm bashing the game, and maybe in that narrow regard I am. But here's the truth of the matter. I love this game. I've told you before, I love cooperative games. I said at the very beginning of this video. And I come from a Dungeons and Dragons type background and other tabletop role-playing games and, playing games online where people are cooperating together. So maybe that is why I love cooperative games so much. But I have to admit that some of the other co-ops that I love, like ones that I've reviewed, like Forbidden Desert, and, there's other games like Pandemic that I really love, and Super Dungeon Explorer right behind me, they can feel like when you finish, you do have a little bit of a sense of accomplishment, but really it's the journey. And it is the journey in Robinson Crusoe as well, but it's the goal as well, because it is so hard to win this game. It is so hard to survive that when you win, and then we've only done it once, and it was the first time, just by chance, we did the first scenario, which is the easiest one, I think. It feels so good. Very few times that I can remember. Maybe this is the first time, I don't know. I have actually won a game, whether it's competitive or cooperative, and jumped out of my seat and said, "Whoa, yeah, we did it!" because that's the feeling we had. It was so hard. You know, there were two groups of gamers playing our very first game, and whenever we actually had enough food to feed everyone in a day, I would yell over to the other people, "We're eating tonight!" You know, it's such an awesome feeling. You really can't find many games where you get that kind of feeling. And that, in a nutshell, is what I love about Robinson Crusoe the most. And there's a bunch of other little, game mechanic things that I like too. Just the aspect of exploration, laying out tiles, and gathering resources. The invention track, I really love that. And building the inventions, that's such a cool thing. I love the peculiar abilities that each of the different classes have. I guess I probably would have preferred more class roles. I'm sure those will come in future expansions, which I think there's at least one that's out and another one planned. So that I would like a little more variety there. And essentially, some of the abilities are just the same for different aspects. Like the builder can get a discount on building, and another player can get a discount on exploring, and so on. But still, I like that everyone's got their own separate role and what they're doing. And I really love the builder. Actually, the carpenter. I'm sorry. The builder is an awful class from Lords of Waterdeep, but the carpenter is really useful in the sense because I love those inventions so much. I would love to play the carpenter every time, quite frankly, because building inventions is just cool, and especially in this game, especially because it's things like a shovel. We're not talking about I've built the hyper assault tank. No, you've built a shovel. And you're like so happy that you built that shovel. And a rope. We had a game where it was so hard to build a piece of rope. We just couldn't get the rope the whole time, and we ended up losing the game. If we'd only had that rope, it sounds so ridiculous, but it's it's awesome. I really love that aspect of it. Some of the things about the game are a little too fiddly for me. Like I said, the setup in and of itself, but having to keep track of all the different markers and having to, when you have to do a certain action or draw a certain card at a certain time, you have to put a token on the stack of cards and trying to keep track of that morale track. And I don't know why. I guess it's just a way to increase the difficulty even more, but having only the primary player take advantage of the morale track, it just feels weird. I feel like we're all contributing to that, and we all suffer the penalty eventually, so why can't we all reap the benefits? I don't know, that's a little wonky to me. But other things about the game that I like, the hunting, which is really cool. Like, you're not necessarily going to find animals. You have to set it up so that you will find animals, by actually building the deck as you go. I really like the idea of, hey, you just drew this card, and if you decide to do nothing with this card now, that's fine, but if you want to take advantage of this really cool benefit, no, you can do so, and it'll really help you guys. But then you're going to have to take this card, and you're going to have to shuffle it into the adventure deck. And if you draw it again, something nasty is going to happen to you. But maybe you won't draw it again. You don't know, so it's that little bit of push your luck. Lots of little neat things about that. This game just tells an awesome story. It doesn't seem like it when you're first setting up the game and playing it, because it's not like there's a lot of story on the cards or anything like that, or once you read your little scenario sheet, that's it. But the story is what you make of it. You going through this adventure, trying to survive, encountering all these different adventures. There's a huge stack of adventure cards, so every game is going to be different inventions, different everything. This game is, I thought 6 scenarios would not be enough, but I would love to replay the 3 that we've done again and again before I even get to the other 3 I haven't tried yet. So lots of variety, lots of exploration, a huge sense of accomplishment. Even if you don't win the entire game, just being able to survive till close to the end just feels great. So this has been quite a wonderful experience for me. I will not say that this game is for everyone, because you still have to like cooperative games to a degree, and you have to be okay with a game that's going to take 3 to 4 hours, with an hour of that maybe being set up, or maybe a half hour, 40 minutes. I don't want to exaggerate, but if you can be okay with those things, you owe it to yourself to try it. It's really a wonderful experience. That's Robinson Crusoe, Adventures on the Cursed Island. My name is Nick. This has been Board Game Brawl, reminding you to get out there and game every day and in every way. Take care.